And the recording has started. Mike, if you could move to the next slide for me, please. And I would
Hold
like
on,
to
I've
take,
lost my mouse.
oops,
There we go.
that's right. I want to take a minute to share SNOO's access and accommodations information, which serves as a reminder for resources available to our community members. So your experience here at Southern New Hampshire University is important to us. It is our policy and practice to create an inclusive and accessible learning environment. If there are aspects of this presentation's design or delivery that present barriers to accessibility, for online students, please notify the Online Accessibility Center by emailing oac@snhu.edu or by phone 866-305-9430. For campus students, our Campus Accessibility Center by emailing cac@snhu.edu or by phone 603-644-3118. For STU staff and faculty, please notify our Human Resources Office by emailing hr@snhu.edu. Next slide, please. You guys are in for a huge treat as Mike and Rich are going to lead you through standing out from the crowd to generate more job interviews. So I'm getting ready to read their bio slides. So if you could forward one more for me, please. So we're going to go with Rich. Rich Grant is a certified global career development facilitator, has worked at SNU since July 2014 as a remote career advisor based in Southern Maine. Prior to that, Rich managed career services at the Thomas College and was the internship coordinator at Colby College in Maine. He entered the field of higher education in 2004 as a graduate school academic director at the University of Maine after working at LL Bean in several merchandising and analytical positions. He earned his MBA and bachelor's degree in business from the University of Southern Maine in Portland. And next slide, please. All right, we're going on to Mike. Mike Larshevek is a certified professional resume writer and self-admitted resume nerd who has been with SNU as a career advisor since March of 2020. Before coming to SNU, Mike spent 5 years as an IT recruiter, successfully placing over 300 candidates and gaining valuable insight into how employers hire and what they're looking for. With previous experience in the field of software and human resources, he has seen firsthand how technology can help or hurt a candidate's chances in the job market. Mike believes that with the right direction, anyone can master their search and achieve their career goals. So without further ado, Mike and Rich, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thanks so much for the introductions. Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for coming to our presentation today. Really excited to get going here. And as you know, SNHU Leads is a great opportunity to learn quite a bit. We've been an annual student and alumni conference since 2015. The theme this year being how to create your moment. And nothing plays into your job search more than it being your moment. So we want to really encourage you to take the lead in your career and chase those opportunities proactively. In our presentation, you are going to provide tips to help you build your personal brand, help you stand out from the pack of all the other applicants out there, and in doing so, hopefully really give you that confidence to create that moment and be the star in your own story.
All right, these 3 bullet points, they were in your SNHU Leads program. We had also written in the session overview that the process of applying for jobs online is an impersonal process and that decisions about you are being made based on written documents when you're applying for jobs. And that's what makes job searching really so challenging, very frustrating. You know, I think the word we used in the program was demoralizing. It can really wear you down. And also there's so much involved in finding a new position. As I mentioned earlier this evening, you know, Mike and I could talk half a day. We could talk for hours about all the many factors contributing to a successful job search. But for the session today, we're going to focus on these 3 items that you see on the screen. Planning and organizing your job search. That'll be Mike. He'll then go into writing the strongest possible job search materials to show you qualifications. Then he'll turn it over to me to tackle that 3rd section of building more professional connections to overcome some of the obstacles that you might encounter as part of this impersonal job search process. And because there's so much ground to cover, we've created some handouts, which we'll put in the chat box near the end of the hour. We'll have some time for Q&A at the end. I encourage you to follow up with any questions. Contacting us, we'll have all our contact info for you if you have any questions after this presentation.
And again, sort of to restate, in this presentation, we're going to show you ways to increase your visibility with recruiters and hiring managers, ideally increase your interview rate, and ultimately make your job search more successful. And to get right into it, executing a structured job search, it sounds relatively simple. What is a job search really? You find a job, you apply to it, and you get the job, right? It's just that easy. In reality, as Rich mentioned, it can be a demoralizing process. It's complex. There's so many variables, and it takes time, effort, and a lot of your resources, your energy, and your dedication. So remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Most people do not go online, go to a job board, apply to one job, and get that job. The average length of a job search is 8 weeks. The average is 80 applications for one interview. So a lot of times this is going to be a very protracted process where you need to plan on the long haul and prepare yourself through this planning and organization. Beginning again, that planning and organization, that is the best place to start. Not immediately going to the job boards and looking and trying to apply, but really thinking out how are you going to complete this long process. And the first stage in that is exploring your careers. So successful job searching, you really need to have that end goal in mind. And remembering that this is unique to you, there's no real correct path or correct answers to what your intended career is. This is one of those hyper-personalized things that could be different from person to person. And as you're looking at this, keep in mind your short versus long-term goals. If you do have that long-term career option of maybe being a mental health counselor, that's great, and that's definitely something to help structure your search. But there are also lots of other positions you could get in the short term to give you relevant experience and advance your career that might not be your ultimate dream job. So broaden your search by looking at some of those short-term options as well. And then also keeping in mind your wants versus your needs is a very important step. Making sure that you understand what you absolutely need in a position will help you get a good understanding of what you should be looking for, as opposed to just what might be a nice to have or something you'd like to have. It's always nice to have company snacks for free that you can just grab, but is that something you actually need in your day-to-day environment to take that position? Whereas if you absolutely need to be working remotely, that's a much stronger thing to put into your search to make sure you're finding those matching positions for yourself. Another thing to keep in mind is assessing your tangible versus your hypothetical job market. I could say that I want to be a movie director, but I might need to move to Hollywood to do that. I can't really do that from my house in New Hampshire. So really understanding what is near you, what's within your commutable distance, what you can really see yourself getting into based on your local area could vary depending on if you're in a major metropolitan area out in the forest like I am. So really taking that real look at what your options are based on your tangible opportunities is important. And one way to get started with career exploration are some career assessment tools. A way to is one that you can actually access through our career services department here at SNHU. So I highly recommend starting with that one. And there are some other third-party websites, or actually lots of third-party websites out there with a lot of personality and career-focused assessments. Some of those are listed on your screen here. So highly recommended if you feel at a loss or need some direction. These can be good places to start the conversation, but not always give you the exact answer of this is your dream job, because obviously, again, it's very personal. Once you've done some of that career exploration, building a target list is a great next step forward. One of the things that you're going to want to do is develop a list of keywords for use in your search. A large majority of job searching now is done online on job boards. So really understanding what you're going to be putting in these job boards to find the jobs you're interested in is very important. Job titles are commonly the most used filter for these searches, but you can also do things like skills, technologies, specific companies. So anything that you want to see in the role you're applying to. So if you wanted to become a counselor again, you could do client intake, and that's not specifically a job title, but it's a skill you would use potentially in that role. So really broadening your searches by including those skills and other keywords can be a good way to show yourself more results. And once you've started thinking about those keywords, you will probably start compiling a big long list of them. So instead of going on job boards and doing 20 different job searches for 20 different job titles, you can create a search string to search much more efficiently. So for example, if you did want to become an HR manager, there are a lot of other titles that HR manager could be. like HR generalist or HR specialist. So how do you search for those all at once? And honestly, it's as simple as just putting the word or between those job titles. So if I were putting that search into Indeed or LinkedIn, it would give me results of HR manager, HR generalist, or HR specialist all within the same search. So now you could be running a search for upwards of 20 to 50 different job titles at the same time instead of duplicating your efforts over and over and over again, really just giving you some extra efficiency. And if you do want to make your search a little bit more narrow, you can use the modifier of and between terms to make sure that the job search is looking for those things in the same exact description. So if you did HR manager and healthcare, it's going to be showing you results that have HR manager and healthcare somewhere within that job description, which can help you narrow down the field a little bit more. And now you've got your career in mind, you've got your target list of job titles you're looking for, but now you need to apply to these jobs. So having your resume and cover letter in order are obviously a very important part of the process. So it's important to remember that the purpose of these documents is really being a sales pitch. The employer doesn't know who you are. Why should they consider you over other applicants at this stage? You really need to spell it out for them. And a large part of that involves selling yourself to that person in a way that's going to let them see you as someone that can handle this responsibility for them. And a good step toward that is developing your why. You're really creating your personal brand of what differentiates you from other people in the marketplace, showing how you meet those employers' needs can position you as if you were selling yourself as a product to them. So really try to think about yourself from that perspective of, in your writing, how are they going to view you? What are they going to value in your background, in your experience, your education, and how can you show that on paper? And it's also very important to remember there is no perfect resume. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be competitive. Most employers are not making hiring decisions based on the initial resume review. Most people aren't even looking at the initial resume review with human eyes. They're running it through applicant tracking systems or keyword searches and just getting you to that next stage. So really your resume just needs to show that you're a good enough fit for this role to get moved on to the next stages where hopefully you get that interview and can really make a case for yourself. And there's a lot of debate about customization. I lean towards customize every single resume and cover letter that you're sending out, because as a previous hiring manager, you become very good at understanding who is sending you a customized resume and who is filling out a template. And hiring managers that sense that you're applying to just any job out there are going to be much less likely to actually advance you to the next stages than if you've actually shown you are writing to them and writing to their organization. So absolutely focus on customizing your resume and cover letter towards the specific roles you're applying to. And just as a quick poll, you might be seeing this in the chat already, but I'd be interested to see how many different job boards people are using to search for positions. I've seen a lot of conflicting responses with this. Some people don't use job boards at all when they're looking for positions. Other people have used upwards of 50. So if you do see the poll in there and you want to submit your vote, it'd be a quick little aside here as we roll into the next slide being your application plan. So I'm seeing a lot of answers here. 3 looks like the main leader right now. 3 and 2. Looks like some people aren't using job boards. And again, there's no correct job search. There's no right answer here in this poll. So it's a little bit of a trick question. Again, really more to gauge everyone's sort of interest in this as a job applicant source. But a common one looks to be 2. So it's important to remember that as you're applying to jobs, employers are not posting every one of their jobs on every single job board out there. A lot of employers have to pay to post these jobs. So at the end of the day, developing a list of job boards that you can use is going to be really important to give you more chances to see more opportunities. If you're only using Indeed, if you're only using LinkedIn or Monster or whatever it might be, you're only seeing a small subset of all those positions that are posted in the market. So by even expanding your one job board to 2 job boards, you're potentially seeing thousands of more jobs that you might not otherwise see. So really as many as you can realistically use, and again, this is where having those search strings built out, you can put them on a Word document and copy and paste them onto the job boards to make it easier for yourself. The more efficient you can make yourself, the more boards you're going to be able to use, which a lot of times can make it a lot easier to actually see more positions and apply to them. And even though job boards are one of the really easy ways to apply, consider where and how you're applying. A lot of employers give preference to their internal applicants or to referrals. So if you can build your network and network your way into an organization, that's a great way to focus on applying first. From there, usually employers are going to focus on the direct applications on their website. So you can use job boards as a way to find leads, basically, to see what jobs are out there. And then if you can go directly to that company's website and apply there, that might give you a leg up on the other people that are just applying on the job boards. Similarly, on the job boards themselves, that can be a great way to apply. And a lot of job boards nowadays have a quick apply feature, which becomes very tempting as an applicant. You want to send out as many resumes and cover letters as possible. But on the employer side, they get to see who quick applied to the role and who actually applied. And many hiring managers view those quick applies as less valid applications because they're assuming, due to their bias or experience, that those applicants are not as qualified or they're just applying to any jobs out there. So again, really try to structure your applications in a way that's going to give you the best chance to get in front of the hiring managers. And once you know where you're applying, setting weekly goals for yourself is a really good step. It can be, very overwhelming to think about, oh, I need to send 80 applications out to potentially get an interview or a job. So if you can set a weekly goal of 10 or 15 or 20, and then from there, think about, when am I going to follow up on these applications? Who can I connect with in these organizations? And set these goals for yourself. From there, you can reevaluate and reassess what worked, what didn't work, what you can add to your job search, what you can change, and really keep evolving that search as you go. So that way you don't become stagnant. You're not running the same searches every single week and hitting the same walls. Really staying as agile as you can and changing that search to keep meeting your needs is going to be important. And again, you're going to be sending out a lot of applications, so being able to organize them is extremely important. Keeping track is one of the best things you can do, especially once you do start applying to 80, 100, 200 jobs. Knowing when you applied to something, where you applied to it, who you reached out to, whatever it might be, even in something as simple as an example chart here, can be a really good way to know what you applied to, when you applied to it. If you have the link to the URL of where you applied to it, whatever it might be, just keeping track can give you the benefit of knowing. That way, when hopefully you get that call from a hiring manager and they say, hey, Sarah, I see you applied to this role. You don't have to say, oh, well, what company are you working with again? Or what job was that? You'll be able to look quickly and say, okay, yes, I know this job. Let's talk about it. And this is something where you can really streamline your follow-up and networking as well. You see a couple fields in there where if you keep track of the hiring manager, if you keep track of when you followed up with an organization and the status of that application, you can really make it a lot easier for yourself to keep track of all these different roles you're applying to. And remember, you can personalize this as well, adding in more columns to track networking events or meetings or cups of coffee you grab with someone at an organization, whatever it might be. Having sort of this master list that you keep track of all your job search and networking efforts is a really good way to stay organized moving forward. Now you've got your job search structure out of the way. Let's go a little bit into resume and cover letter writing. And obviously, as Rich mentioned before, this is a complex topic that we could talk for hours about. But to cover some of the main points, really think about the job search from the employer's perspective. A lot of people focus on their objective, and it's important to remember that the employer has their own objective. They're trying to hire to meet their needs, not necessarily to give you a job and meet your needs right off the bat. So remember, you're unknown to the employer at this stage. There are potentially hundreds of applicants pouring in after they've, established their need, created their job posting, posted it out there. They need to weed through tons of applicants that might not be qualified, might be overqualified, might not have any experience, or might have 50 years of experience. So the employer has a lot to wade through, and basically they are trying to find out who is going to stand out to them as the most qualified applicants and people that they can feel confident can move on to the next stage and come in for an interview. Now, a big part of showing an employer that you are the right fit is portraying confidence. And a large part of that is really owning your story. And we talked about creating your own professional brand and really understanding what you're capable of. So knowing what you can do for this organization, knowing what you've done based on your background, your experience, and your education, and putting together that story of why you're the right fit for the position is going to be very important to showing that reader why they should consider you and move you on to the next stage. And confidence comes through in your writing. So remember your tone of voice. Assertive versus passive voice in your text can come through in a lot of different ways. So for example, something like, I hope to speak with you. Off the bat, that sounds okay. But what sounds stronger? I hope to speak with you, or I look forward to speaking with you. Sometimes those subtle little changes in your writing can portray more confidence to the reader. So remember, use strong action verbs. Try to avoid those passive phrases. So things like managed and achieved are going to sound a lot stronger than assisted with or when necessary. So really just think about, as that third party that doesn't know you yet, isn't confident or understanding of what you're capable of, how can you show them in your writing that you do have the confidence in yourself? And use those assertive tones of voice to really show that reader you know what you're capable of. You know you can handle this job and knock it out of the park, as opposed to, well, I could probably handle this job. Another large part of showing the reader that you're sort of tailored to this role is the professional summary. And this is really your first impression. A lot of hiring managers don't read cover letters, even if they ask for them. So in this sense, a professional summary is basically like a little mini cover letter. So in 4 to 5 sentences, you can show that reader why you're the right fit for this role. And again, it's important to break away from your objective and sort of forget about what you want right now. Obviously, you want a job, you want to advance your career. Everyone wants a paycheck. That's always great. But at this stage, the employer wants to see how you meet their needs, not the other way around. And as cynical as that might sound, they're trying to fill their hiring quota. They're not trying to give people jobs altruistically. So again, this is your elevator pitch. This is something that needs to be focused. It needs to be concise. You want to really stay professional with this. You don't want to be talking about, your passion unless it directly relates to this job. You don't want to talk about your hobbies unless it directly relates to this job. Keep it as focused as possible to show your exact impact and how you're going to perform in this role you're applying to. Again, keep it focused towards the company and role you're applying to. Hiring managers know when you're writing a general professional summary that just focuses on broad skills and doesn't really show you're connecting it to the job you're applying to. So really make sure that in those 4 to 5 sentences, you're showing that reader why those skills are specifically relevant in the role you're applying for. As you move on to your skills section, this can be a really great way to stand out in the process of applying to work jobs. A lot of employers are using those keyword search algorithms and applicant tracking systems where basically AI is automatically scanning your resume to see this resume is a 50% match versus this resume is a 90% match. And some employers will set sort of cutoffs where if a resume is below 75% of a keyword match, they might not even review it, or you go into their maybe or no pile. So really, the more you can do to show that you have the keywords that are in the job description on your resume, the better chance your resume is going to have to make it through that process. So really focus on keyword matching and then focus on the specific position to not just have a list of 100 keywords that might match with everything, but really take the time to analyze the job description, see what they're asking for, and then make sure those skills are on your resume. And it's also important to remember that you can have soft and hard skills on there. Soft skills are things like communication and leadership, whereas hard skills might be something like Microsoft Word or PowerPoint. So those are both very important in different ways to potential employers. So making sure that you're not only focusing on soft skills or only focusing on hard skills, and you do have a good mix of both, can help show why you're going to be more effective in that position. And one thing that's really important to differentiate yourself here is sort of showing more context and giving readers an insight into how you can use a skill instead of just simply listing it on a resume. So as a quick example here, something like Microsoft Word and PowerPoint, that is going to match you with a lot of keyword search algorithms and applicant tracking systems. But when a reader looks at it, they don't know what you're capable of with these programs. They don't know how you've used them, what you've done with them, or anything like that. So add a bit more context. Create professional deliverables and engaging presentations. That's something that the reader can take away and understand your impact with those technologies, as opposed to simply saying, okay, they've used it, I guess we have to ask them about it now. Now they have something specifically where they can say, oh, I see you've created presentations with PowerPoint. Tell me more about that. So really, as much detail as you can provide in that skills section, the better. And finally, bullet points. This is something where this is how you're going to show the bulk of your experience and your relevant experience that makes you qualified for the position. So it's important to remember that you are way more than your job description. You are not just what you were tasked with. You are not just what you were responsible for. You are someone that has made success. You have created impact for these organizations. You've likely had multiple achievements with these companies. So really focus on what you provided to that organization And a lot of times this goes above and beyond your job description. You might have been tasked with something that's not officially on your job description or in your job title. So you're free and clear to put what you actually did for these organizations, even if it wasn't to the letter of your job description. So really break away, feel more creative, think about what you actually contributed to these companies and focus on that as opposed to just what you were word by word responsible for. And a good way to think about this, if you haven't had a lot of practice, is using the STAR method. So this is something where you can help break down your experience and what you've done by thinking about first the situation. What was the situation you were facing? Things to think about are what type of company you were working for, what level of employee you were within the organization, and then think about what you were tasked with. So as that employee for that organization, what were your responsibilities? What were your goals? And this is where a lot of people sort of stop when they're writing bullet points. But then to level it up and get stronger, think about the actual actions you took. So what did you take as an action to solve this problem? What was the thing that you can own as an employee that you personally did, and show that to the reader? And then again, to level it up even further, think about the result. What was the result for the organization? How can you quantify that result to a reader and show them what you actually achieved? Those are the things that are going to really help you stand out as you go through this process. And hopefully, after making all these changes and thinking about your application as really that sales pitch where you want to give more insight and more detail to this reader, they're going to feel a lot more confident bringing you onto that next stage and giving you more interviews.
That was great, Mike. Thanks so much. Appreciate that. A lot of great questions in the chat box too, and thanks to the career team for really staying on top of those. And we'll have time at the end as well, as I mentioned before, that we'll have time to tackle more of those questions. Hey, let me just make sure my arrows are working, and they don't seem to be. Hang on just a second. Just going to go back in time. Why is this not working? Weird. Okay. Well, let me try going forward. Well, let me just start, and then Mike, I may need some help, but my
I'll
arrows
advance
didn't.
for you if you need me to.
Yeah, it didn't seem to be working. So anyway, welcome everyone, and again, thank you, Mike. Now let's get into the third and final part of our presentation today, which is building and maintaining professional relationships. So really, I say finding a job is all about people. Obviously, it's not 100%. And then I noticed a question from Holly about whatever happened to face-to-face. So yes, absolutely, Holly, and we'll be getting into that because face-to-face networking vitally important. Now, besides our presentation tonight, I really highly recommend viewing the keynote from yesterday. And as I mentioned in one of the handouts, I'll have a link to that. It was by Amanda Nachman, and she provided a lot of really awesome insights about connecting with people. Now, as far as this, let me try my arrow here. Let me try clicking. Yeah, there we go. All right, it works. Yay. Anyway, you might say, what do you mean don't look for jobs? Well, obviously you do want to look for jobs, but at the same time, really important to look for people that can help you. Even with the sharpest resume, you follow all of Mike's advice, get this organized job search, you keep track of everything like Mike told you to do. It's going to take you a little bit longer to land a job if you don't interact with people, either in person, which is really important, but lately a lot of virtual events, a lot of interaction on social media. Tonight I'll touch on LinkedIn and Twitter. Yesterday, Amanda mentioned LinkedIn, showed a few things there. And she also talked about professional use of Instagram and TikTok. I'm on a Facebook group or two professionally, so really look to social media as well as that face-to-face networking. Now, this iceberg really helps to put things in perspective. During a job search, spend a lot more time talking with people than you do staying at home looking for job openings. And then you might say, well, why is that important? Mainly because people know people, and you need to really inject some personal connection and personality. Because as we mentioned in the beginning, it really is a largely impersonal process. I noticed my friend Peter Bartel just posted this slides for Peter. Um, I'm sure we all, as career advisors, that are on the chat, Mike and I, we hear comments like, "Well, I don't know anyone. I don't have a network. Um, I just moved here. I don't know anyone in the city. I don't know anyone in healthcare or whatever, marketing, whatever career, whatever job you're going for." It almost doesn't matter. It kind of matters, but let's talk about how to get around those barriers. And now you might be wondering, I mean, Peter knows why this piece of this cup of coffee is here. Then you might also wonder, why is coffee written like that? So Peter, who is in employer relations here at SNU, master at networking. I've learned so much about networking from Peter. He created this acronym for coffee to illustrate the point about broadening your thinking about who's in your network or maybe your potential network. So Peter would say coffee, it stands for coworkers, friends, family. And then the EE is everybody else. Now, another way to think about it, this comes from Dr. William Stone, author of From Chaos to Creativity in Careers. And Bill Stone would say, if they have a pulse, network with them. So really, anybody and anywhere, really. I mentioned networking a couple of times. You might be thinking, oh, if you're like a lot of people that really dread that thought of networking, career expert and author Donald Asher, he advises not to use the word networking, but really just think of it as I'm going to talk to someone. I usually refer to networking as building relationships with people, just getting in touch with people, just, having that personal interaction. So important. So just as an example, this right here, this is networking. And this is too. This is networking, particularly the guy shaking hands, maybe not the guy networking with his nose in the middle. But this is the friends in Peter's coffee acronym. And it's a really, really good starting point to build and expand those network of connections. You start with the people who know you the best, you trust them. And again, you might not think, oh, I don't know anyone. I don't have any connections in my industry, but your cousin might have a best friend that works in your career field. Or it could be the person that's been cutting your hair for years could have that perfect connection for you. So don't overlook the possibilities. So today you might think, well, I got a small network, but through the people you know who can introduce you to others, those connections are going to grow. Then as you get to know more people, you're going to be in a better position to get referred. These two statistics are from Job Seeker Nation. It's an annual report by JobVite. Now, referrals could be through formal company referral programs, as mentioned here on the slide, but they might originate from people you know. Like maybe the person who cut your hair might be able to refer you, or you might run into somebody you know at the grocery store. That person refers you to a really good contact. Now, your ideal career connection, it could come from anyone, anywhere, at any time. Think about potential connections through social situations, sports, church, or other community events. One of my coworkers, Kathy, got her job here at SNHU by chatting with parents at a youth sports game. It all started with a casual, hey, does anyone know anyone who works at SNU? And to make a long story short, after, and talk to this person, resulted in an employee hand delivering her resume to the recruiter. Just chatted with Kathy today, and she told me she quickly got an interview and was hired within 5 days. Now, a couple of really important points here. Kathy didn't land the job the very next day. I mean, she said 5 days. It's not an immediate thing, right? And the second point being, she didn't start out by asking, hey, folks, who's hiring at SNU, or can you refer me to somebody at SNU? But first, she probably had already built the rapport even before asking that question, but starting out by building the relationships with those parents. So when you're networking first, you really have to build trust to make things happen. There's a lot of really good quotes about networking in terms of Planting Seeds Long Before You Harvest the Food. It's also a book about networking called Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty. I didn't even have to read that book. Title told me everything I need to know. I think, in other words, don't expect immediate results. It's a process. I think Mike alluded to that as well. Would you say, Mike? It's a marathon, not a sprint. So,
Absolutely.
excellent point. And any of the career advisors on the chat, Mike and I, we could tell you we've heard so many really interesting success stories from all of you out there, students and graduates who have landed jobs in their career field. And I'd say one of the real common themes is the same as this year's SNHU Leads conference theme about create your moment. And one of the handouts, we're going to provide handouts at the end of the presentation. You're going to be able to read about some of our students and alumni who found opportunities really through interactions with people, really networking focused. And in some cases, it's really interesting. It was just a matter of being in the right place at the right time. I was visiting a friend, and mom or the dad walks in, and next thing I know, I have an internship. But even when you land something or fall into something like that, really take some initiative on your part to create your moment. So definitely keep that in mind. And in that handout, or one of the handouts, I mentioned Kathy earlier. She was working with a student, Marcus. He was trying to get into the music business. So Kathy helped Marcus identify potential networking contacts. And in one of their online searches, they found this professional association called Women in Music. Now, through their website, Marcus found contact info for their board members. Then Kathy helped him with a plan about how to get in touch, what to say. And as you can see in this chart on the screen, one person led Marcus to another, which then leads to two others. I didn't even diagram everything because there was more to it. And you can, again, read more details in the handout. But one key thing, is Kathy coached Marcus on what to say about informational interviewing, just some of the tips and the whole culture of informational interviewing. She advised Marcus to ask each person at the end of the meeting or near the end, is there anyone else in your professional network that you'd recommend I speak with who would be helpful to me in learning more about the music business? So keep that in mind. You can network, but try to get that contact to lead you to perhaps another contact or two. The way Kathy describes it, is we did a webinar about a year ago on this, and she said, think of these board of directors members as super connectors. They're experienced and they're really well connected. She also mentioned, we talked about this again today, other super connectors you can think about, people that are really well connected, realtors, salespeople, builders, local politicians, community leaders, could be church, could be, nonprofit, even regular volunteers, people who have a lot of volunteerism and made a lot of contacts that way. Now, as you meet new people, it's really important to be subtle in your approach and not ask for any favors until you do build some rapport. Focus on learning new information about their industry or the job that they have. So you can ask questions like, well, how did you break into this field? How did you move up? What would you recommend that I do at this point in my career or as a student to build that skill and experience? Amanda had a few questions as well. So again, check out her keynote. I'll give you an example too. Let's say, for example, not that I would do this, you don't want me doing your accounting work, but let's say I was transitioning to finance, and Mike said, "Hey, I know a manager. Talk to my friend." So, well, first of all, having that mutual connection is great because I can mention Mike. Maybe Mike's willing to make a phone call on my behalf first. But anyway, I could call the person and say, I'm finishing up my degree in finance next summer. Mike Larshevek suggests I get in touch with you to learn more about being an analyst. Mike had mentioned you have a lot of experience in banking, and I'd like to ask some questions and just gain some insights about that field. So really, again, showing that interest in the other person. Amanda touched on that. I know Mike touched on that. So definitely view that recording of the keynote. Amanda touches on a lot of these same themes, but she spent really a lot of time and provides a lot of additional depth to this topic. All right, we're going to focus now on social media. I know face to face is definitely important. You want to make that really strong face to face connection, but think about all the social media. I mean, LinkedIn, primarily Twitter, other social media sites, literally opens up a world of possibilities. And you can follow the same networking approach that we've been talking about just now by commenting on sites like LinkedIn, joining some groups. I mentioned being in a couple of Facebook groups, participate in job search or industry specific Twitter chats. I'll show you about Twitter chats in just a minute. And then just really being on LinkedIn. I mean, it's one thing to have a LinkedIn profile, but you have to use LinkedIn. Here's an example, something you might see in your news feed. So now in this case, I'm not connected to Michelle, but I follow her. That's something you can do, by the way, on LinkedIn. You don't necessarily have to connect. So I can see what she posts just by following. Now, for illustration purposes, I mentioned earlier the finance example. Now I'm an HR student. So I see, oh, she's presenting. I clicked through, saw what she was presenting on, and I just put in a friendly comment to Michelle's post. Now, again, this is hypothetical, not a real comment, but it really is realistic. In this situation, I'd like to gain more knowledge about artificial intelligence. So I'm suggesting a phone call asking Michelle, can we talk? Maybe she will, maybe she won't. And I know I'm gonna send some of the skeptics out there thinking, oh yeah, this doesn't work. This will never work for me, right? People won't talk to me. They won't respond to my calls. Well, to be realistic, yeah, that is gonna happen. You're gonna get ignored. It's the nature of the job search. You're gonna hear a lot of no's. Build that thick skin, right? You're gonna hear some no's before you hear the yeses. But on the other hand, I know for a fact there are a lot of people out there. They love to help people, especially if you say, I'm a student, I'm finishing up my degree in whatever, trying to, figure out how to break into this new career field. You're going to find some help out there. I can almost guarantee it. Now, to identify people on LinkedIn, you can search for any piece of information. This is just a partial list here. This example with the A/B testing, this is based on an actual situation. I was helping a digital marketing student applying to a lot of jobs that involved A/B testing. He didn't know much about that. So I said, well, on your LinkedIn, do a very similar search like this and look for your second degree connections, right? And then once you find those second degree connections, what you want to do is you want to look at who are you connected to? Look at your first degree connections. Actually had some good success with this in my job searches. I'll give you an example. Let's use Elizabeth Lee just as an example. First, I'd make a phone call to the person I know, Sherry Fowler Mason, and I'd ask her, can you introduce me to Elizabeth, or at least give me your email address? Actually, don't suggest attempting to connect on LinkedIn in this situation. There's a few reasons. Sometimes people will ignore you. In fact, I think it's more likely than not they'll just ignore your connection request if they don't know you. They might report the contact as, I don't know this person. If Peter's still here, maybe you could explain what LinkedIn jail is in the chat box. If you have a lot of, oh, I don't know this, if you try to connect with a lot of people, there's something as euphemism or whatever, slang, I guess, LinkedIn jail. I think also you just get better results by calling, emailing, mentioning, hey, Sherry suggests I give you a call. It's going to really yield a lot better results. I want to point something out on a LinkedIn company page because it's sort of hidden. It doesn't really look like a link, but the number of employees, that 222,000, that is a link. So literally bring up a list of that many employees. Now I do have a couple of connections. You see that on the left, but I'll run through this example, assuming I don't know anyone there. And this is something Amanda showed. So if you were on the keynote wondering, how did she get here? Part of it's just through LinkedIn searching. I happen to be on the Oracle page, but she did something really similar. So I clicked on the employees link. Now I see all these 226,000 results. First thing I would suggest, because there are so many, I'd click on all filters. So you want to narrow down your search. Now, when Amanda did this, she entered SNHU, so she found SNHU students and alumni. Also within all filters, there are fields for first and last name, location, job title. Now with my second degree connections, I could follow that same approach that I mentioned in that previous example. Now another way, if you were looking to find SNHU contacts besides the all filters, which has a field called college, just go to the SNHU LinkedIn page. Then you click on alumni, which also brings up current students. Now from there, you're going to see something like this. You can enter any search term in the box, similar to what I was saying before. Anything goes. You can search on anything. And then, like on here, I search for anti-money laundering. But you can also filter down results. If you're on this page, click into the colored boxes below where they live, where they work. Click next, you'll see more columns of information. Then after you do all that, when you scroll down, you're going to see your search results. Now, just a quick piece on Twitter, because you can also search for people on Twitter. In this case, I'm searching for people who know about Six Sigma. And just a few tips about using Twitter. Not sure if anyone's on there. I mean, I see a lot of politics. And I see a lot of, who's slapping who at the Oscars, but there's a lot of professional content on Twitter as well. So if I wanted to get to know the people on this list or more people about some topic like Six Sigma or back to A/B testing, whatever it is, just following some of these tips, connecting, commenting, liking, just start engaging with the content. I mentioned earlier about Twitter chats. There's one called Job Hunt Chat, very specific to job hunting. This one's a marketing chat from the Content Marketing Institute. So you'll notice the hashtag CMWorld, because as you're tweeting, what you want to do is, well, first of all, the moderator asks questions using that hashtag. Then if you participate in a chat, just adding that hashtag as you reply. And the cool thing about this, and I've been on several chats, if you're participating in these regularly, you get to know other people who are attending each week or each month, whatever the interval is. And just in my own personal experience, I still have connections today that originated in Twitter chats 10 years ago. And there's actually a couple of people I've not met in person, been on the phone, on video meetings. So, it's just kind of an interesting thing. And this was from a career services chat. This is almost 8 years ago. The tweet at the top was from Carrie, who was SNHU's career services director at that time. After this Twitter chat, she and I connected on LinkedIn. I sent her links to a blog I was writing about career advice. Then I applied to the job that she mentioned here in the Twitter chat. To make a long story short, 5 weeks after this chat, she offered me a job. I know that's not as fast as what Kathy was experiencing, but I thought that was pretty good. So when using social media for networking, connect with people in a meaningful way. There's a lot of bickering on Twitter and LinkedIn. Well, maybe not as much LinkedIn, but just be friendly and helpful. Be a good conversationalist. Share information. Like and share and comment. Provide good insights. As the authors of a book called A World Gone Social put it, be social on social media. Now, I thought this quote from the Job Seeker Nation survey, good way to wrap things up. Sometimes in job searching, people think, I need to reinvent myself, reinvent themselves into something that's not genuinely them. So I would take the advice from these recruiters who say, be authentic, be honest. And if you can demonstrate that sincerity, that integrity to employers, you're going to be successful in your career. There's one more view of our SNHU career services, our email address, phone number. Again, it's in one of the handouts. Find us within my SNHU. Anyway, thanks for your time. So Mike and I will answer as many questions as we can, but be sure to call or email us because we may not get to all of them. So thanks so much.
Phenomenal job, Mike and Rich. You guys are a well-oiled machine, and thank you so much to Dana, Thomas, Peter for all of their support in the chat. We do have about 9 minutes left for some Q&A to ask any questions, share reflections. Just as a reminder, this session is being recorded for future viewing. We'll do our best to answer as many as we can in the last 9 minutes or so. So with that, I kind of framed a few questions that were answered, but were very common, just perhaps they might have flown by in the chat. So one of the questions was, at what point in the student life cycle should they reach out to the career team?
Now, please now, as
Yeah,
early as possible.
Yeah, I think Tom said today, and I usually say yesterday. Yeah, first term, maybe second term. If you're in your first term, you want to get settled in. But yeah, definitely sooner rather than later.
I think
Great.
especially with Rich's point towards people networking, that can happen at literally any point. You don't need to be actively looking for work, and that can actually be a benefit where if you don't have the desperation of needing a job, you can information gather a lot easier and focus on the rapport building. So that way, when you do need that job, you've got that relationship built already.
Excellent. And I know Dana shared the SNU Connect page to the career networking community, as well as the My SNU links to all of your department information, and also talked about that your department hosts some events. So one of the questions what was asked was, are there routine or regular workshops for resume writing? And then if so, is there a repository where they could maybe watch recordings, or what does that look like?
What do you think, Mike?
So I would say the best way to really get the most value out of your resume and cover letter process would be directly engaging with one of us here at the career team, just because, again, we can spend the time to get to know you, your background or lack thereof. Even if you don't have experience, there are ways to position your education to get towards the career you want to get towards. And there's ways to gain volunteer experience or internship experience. So the more you can connect with us, the better we're going to be able to assist you. There really is no like easy one size fits all resume template out there or approach that's going to work for everyone. One of the things that can be really helpful is through Handshake, which is a great platform that SNHU utilizes. A lot of external employers will host resume building days or practice interview days and things like that. So I highly recommend going on Handshake and seeing what's available to get that actual employer perspective, which can be, crucially valuable to you actually creating a resume that's going to stand out to those employers.
One answer too. Thanks, Mike. As far as I think workshops or recordings to view, there are webinars. And Amanda, whoever, Chantel, if you're here, I can't drag these handouts into the chat box. Is there some setting you could enable? One of the handouts does have some links. We have a YouTube channel. There are, in fact, I even have some direct links to cover letter, resume, but I can't put them in the chat box. So we'll somehow figure out how to get that to you. Anyway, next question, if you want to get into that.
Sure. When is the point when networking becomes too much? After you already have 500 plus connections on one platform like LinkedIn, what's the purpose of continuing to make connections? Would it not be better to work on yourself and build products or a business versus, continuing to build those connections?
It's about quality and not as much quantity. I mean, you could have 500 connections, but do they know you? Because the whole second degree thing I was showing before, and I do happen to know Sherry Mason, she probably would help me. Whereas if my first degree connection to Elizabeth Lee was somebody in another country that I connected with but don't know, it's not going to really help me. So, I mean, and then the other part of the question, building a business, or maybe part of it is, professional development. I guess it's all important. Just that connection with people is just vitally important in a job search.
Great. So we do have about 3 more questions, and then just FYI, Rich, you can send us any forms that you would like for us to include in this recording, and we'd be happy to add those before
Okay.
it gets posted, so we can do that for you. The next
Sounds
question
good.
is, how do you get a recruiter interested in you?
Mike.
So I think a good first step is definitely that resume and cover letter. Again, tailoring those so that someone's actually going to see your differentiating factors and be interested in you. is the best possible thing you can do. You don't just want to be another applicant that they don't get excited about. You want to be able to write something engaging that they say, oh, this seems like this person has something we would value, or it seems like they really understand our organization or our mission statement or whatever it might be. Whatever you can do to actually show what you have that they would want, those are the things that are going to differentiate you and make you stand out from those other applicants. But one of the best things you can do is go on LinkedIn and search that company that you just applied to and see if they have any people that are titled as recruiter or talent acquisition or hiring manager, and send those people a message. Hey, Sarah, I just applied to this role. Really excited to discuss what you do here at ABC Corporation. Just graduated with my master's of organizational leadership and know I can bring a lot to the team. That's a very quick message that could get you connected with a recruiter and open up a dialogue where you're not saying, hey, can you check on the status of this job for me? But you're showing that genuine interest and creating a human connection, which you can then leverage after you've had some messages back and forth to say, hey, by the way, what's the status of that application? Can you check on that for me?
I think one thing I'd add is even doing that even more proactively, or start building relationships with recruiters, that whole dig you well now and drink the water later kind of concept.
Yep, we have time for one last question and a reflection, and then we'll kind of close out our session here. But we'll go with the reflection first, and I think this is powerful, and you guys did a phenomenal job. But the reflection was, I made some notes. Thank you for such great advice. I love connecting with others and have been networking for years through social media, but this gave some great pointers on how to do it more specifically. So thank you for your thoroughness, for the entire team effort that you guys have brought here this evening. We really appreciate that. And the final question that we have for today is, can the career team help with choosing between a job or going for your master's degree?
We can definitely help.
Yeah.
The thing is, there's no correct path for a lot of people. And again, it is so hyper individualized that we need to be able to know you and know your motivations and your goals and your struggles and what this journey has been for you. Most people don't just breeze through a degree program with all the other stuff going on in the country right now. So, really take the time to do that self inventory and understand what matters to you. And then again, connect with us. We'll sit down with you and understand those things so we can create that path forward. We can't give you the magic answer to say, this is exactly what you should do. This is 100% proven way to get you exactly where you want to be. But we can definitely, use our lived experience and use our interactions with learners where we've seen this success happen and help you create that roadmap for yourself.
Just want to add to that. I want to explain whoever asked that question. I was laughing, and certainly not laughing at you or the question, but my knee-jerk reaction is no, don't get a master's. I observe so many people going into a master's program thinking it'll help in a job search, and it actually can hurt. So depending on your level of experience and what Mike said, let us get to know you, your situation. Maybe the master's is appropriate. But if you have zero experience in a career field, you think the master's is going to help you advance better in the job search, it won't. So I would say follow Mike's advice. Get on the phone with the career advisor.
Excellent. And Mike, if you could forward to the last slide for me, I would appreciate it. Oh, there you go. Thank you. So with that, it is officially 6 o'clock and this lead session has come to an end. Thank you so much, Mandy, and to our wonderful presenters, Rich, Mike, and your supporting staff, Dana, Thomas, Peter, and anybody else that I might have missed. And thank you all for attending and participating in this lead session. We hope that you'll click the Leads virtual program and the chat to explore other sessions available throughout Leads Conference today. So we have 2 more sessions tonight. We have 8 o'clock, Finding What Gives You Energy, and then we'll close it out with a wonderful kind of final session there as well right after. And so thank you all so much. Mandy just posted in the chat some links that will be really helpful, and hopefully we'll see you all this evening tonight at 8 o'clock. Thank you guys very much and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you all so much for being here.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
And email career services.
Hey, I'm going to type